From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast designed to help you discover and develop the leader you are destined to be. Today's episode, it really, to me, was inspired by, maybe you've heard it on the radio. It's a really great song, or a song that I just really love. It's been playing on Joy FM recently, a Lauren Daigle song, and I really love her music and her voice, but what I really love about her songs is that there's just always such a powerful message in them. And so maybe you've heard the song, and I think the chorus goes something like, "When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. And when you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust in you." And I love that because it's a song talking about, so often we have something that we're praying about or an issue that's weighing us down. And, we're told in the Bible that if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, we can move mountains. And so a lot of times when we pray for something, or when we question God, or when we doubt God, it's so easy to either think, number one, he's not listening, or number two, we don't have enough faith, or number three, we start to doubt that God really does have good intentions, for good plans for us in our life. And so I love that song because it's just such a great reminder that sometimes what we're praying about and what we want in our life is not the best thing for us, but we don't realize it. And so we get so frustrated questioning God's timing or God's plan, or why he allows bad things to happen. I love to say that God doesn't cause the pain in our lives, but he can use it. But a lot of times we don't understand that when we're in the season, when we're in the moment. We're like, God, why did you allow this bad thing to happen in my life? Why? I don't understand the reason. How could such a terrible thing happen? How could you let that happen? Bad things happen to good people, right? We all face adversity or trying circumstances. Life isn't easy. But when we're in that season, it's so difficult to realize and remember that God does have a reason for the things that happen in our lives. Now, we might not like what we're going through. Most of the time we don't, right? Adversity is not fun. Disease is not fun. If you're struggling with a personal illness or maybe a death of a loved one, and we question that and go, God, why would you let that happen? But it's so important that if we are going to embrace the fact that God does have good plans for us, it might take a long time to get there. We might not always know or ever know the reason why something bad or negative happens in our life. But see, here's the thing. It's only negative when we put that perspective on it, right? Because a lot of times we're going through our day-to-day lives and we're in a season of adversity, and we don't have the 30,000 foot view that God has. And so it feels negative in the moment, and certainly things are bad things happen, pain happens. But because we don't have the 30,000 foot view, we're not able to see the whole picture. We're not able to see how it really can be a good thing in our life. So I love that song because it reminds me to have that perspective that even when the mountain doesn't move, right, there's a reason, and I have to trust God for that. There's a quote Bob Goff says in one of his books. It says, "Before you decide why things have happened in your past or why they are happening now, wait for God to whisper the reasons to you." And that comes back to a lot of times when we get frustrated with that mountain because it's not moving, or when God doesn't part the waters that we want to walk through, when things are tough. Sometimes maybe you felt God's calling you to do something, but it's not an easy something. And so a lot of times we start to get frustrated when there are obstacles, when there is adversity, and we stop listening to the whisper that God puts in our lives, right? We start focusing on the obstacle or the roadblock or the river that won't part, and we stop listening for God saying, you know what, here's the detour, or here's the path over that mountain or around that mountain. So wait for the whisper. When we're in a season of adversity and a season of doubt and a season of questioning, that's when our faith gets to be the strongest. It's just like our physical muscles get stronger when we lift weights. When you go to pick up weights and they're heavy and you do that a few times, and then you're going to be sore the next day. But you know that you're sore because you stretch that muscle and you challenge that muscle, and little muscle fibers broke down, and there were some little tears in your muscle when you did that a lot, but it rebuilds stronger. And our faith is much the same way. When we're in a season of doubt and something is challenging us and we're frustrated or hurt or upset or angry, that's when we can rebuild our faith stronger, when we remember to listen to the whisper. Maybe God only whispers the reasons for why bad things happen. He doesn't cause the pain in our lives, but He can use it. And we have to be grateful for that. That's a huge lesson in maturity, and I can share with you that's not easy, right? When it comes to my story, I've learned that when I share my story, a lot of times people don't know what to say, or sometimes they'll say, I'm sorry that happened to you. And I have to say, you know what? I'm not sorry. I mean, yes, it was a bad, terrible thing to grow up being sexually abused and really dealing with that and healing from that and recovering from that is probably a journey I will be on forever, right? But I'm not sorry, because that was a terrible, awful thing. But it's become a good thing because I can share it and help other people realize that what happens to us doesn't have to define us for the rest of our lives. And so then it's become a very beautiful thing that God has been able to use. And so while God didn't cause that to happen to me, He's able to use it. And it is a step of faith. It is a leap of faith to remember that when bad things happen, there is a reason that God can use that for something good. Now, we don't always know the reason. I will tell you that. And sometimes it's years. Sometimes we might not ever know the reason. But there is a reason. I think I've shared with you before, if you're a regular podcast listener, I shared with you the story of Corrie ten Boom and the fleas. And if you don't know the story, I'll just briefly share it with you. When Corrie ten Boom and her sister were in the concentration camp, and they were in this one particular building. They were, given a quarters to sleep in, and it was horribly overcrowded, and they were sick, and they were starving, and many of them were dying, and they didn't have anything, and they were treated so terribly. And Corrie ten Boom says, she shares the story of her sister talking about let's stop and pray, rather than get so depressed about what we're going through. Let's stop and pray and be grateful for what we have. And so they started listing off the things that they were grateful for. And, they're grateful for the very, very thin blanket that they had. Because even though they weren't warm, they were freezing. But they had this little thin blanket, so that was something they were grateful for. They were grateful that they were going through this together, right? They had each other, and so that was something they were grateful for. And so they prayed, and they started listing all the things that they were grateful for. And Corrie ten Boom's sister said, I'm grateful for the fleas. Lord, I'm grateful for the fleas. And Corrie said, I can't go that far. I'm not grateful for the fleas that are biting us. Like there can be no good thing that comes from these fleas biting us. I can't go that far. Her faith just wasn't there. And so, she shares later on in the story that they realized later this one particular bunkhouse that they were in never got searched by the guards. And so they were able to keep a small copy of the New Testament hidden because the guards never came in and searched that particular bunkhouse. And Corrie later learned that they never came in and searched that bunkhouse because of the flea problem. The guards didn't want to deal with the fleas. They were so bad in that one particular place. So they never came in and searched it. And so later she realized that her sister had been praying, I'm grateful for the fleas. I'm grateful for the fleas. Even if I don't know why, I'm grateful for the fleas, Lord. And Corrie realized that the fleas biting them did have a good purpose. And isn't that powerful? You know, when we're going through that situation, when the fleas are biting you right now, you don't always know why. And so it's so easy to question and say, God, I can't be grateful for this. This is terrible. This is bad. I can't be grateful for this. But we absolutely can be grateful when we remember that God can use those fleas. If God can use fleas for something good, He can use the bad things that happen in our life too. We just have to wait for the whisper. Wait for God to whisper the reasons to you. It will be worth the wait. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.